Good afternoon, everyone. So we are meeting after a really long time. Yes. Yeah, I suppose. So we met last year. Okay. So the last topics, which of course you don't remember, but we were studying health, and then we went on to talk about immunity, and we finished that part. We will just see this one question, see if it makes sense to you. This is a UPSC previous year question. B, okay. A, C, okay. A lot of answers we've got now. Which of the following statements is not correct? So here we are looking for an incorrect statement. Hepatitis B virus is transmitted much like HIV. Okay. So hepatitis B is transmitted through blood and body fluids. Similar is the transmission of HIV also. Okay. So this statement is correct, and we are looking for an incorrect one. So this can't be it. Then hepatitis B, unlike hepatitis C, does not have a vaccine. What this statement is saying that hepatitis B is not like hepatitis C, and hepatitis B does not have a vaccine. This would be incorrect. So out of the different types of hepatitis, which is A, B, C, D, and E, C is the only one which does not have a vaccine. All the other four, they have vaccines against them. So this is saying B does not have a vaccine, but C has. So this would be incorrect, and because there can be only one incorrect statement here, this is also going to be your answer. So this question only wanted you to know about this. कि hepatitis में किसकी vaccine है, किसकी vaccine नहीं. Then the next statement is, globally, the number of people infected with hepatitis B and C viruses are several times more than those infected with HIV. This is actually correct. Hepatitis is a much more infectious disease globally, and the number of people who have hepatitis infection, there are much more. The last statement, some of those infected with hepatitis B and C do not show symptoms for many years. This is correct, not just for hepatitis, but for a lot of viral diseases. In fact, most viral diseases, I'll say this. Because what happens is the virus might be present in the body, but it might not be causing any disease. Okay, so, and this time period could be of many years. For HIV, this concept is more widely understood. Like when people say that somebody is HIV positive, that just means that there is an HIV virus in that person's body. But that virus might not be doing any kind of damage, might not be causing any disease or any problem in any way. When it starts causing a problem, when this disease occurs, that's when you say the person has AIDS. So being HIV positive will be different from having AIDS, because the time period in between the two situations can be 10 years, even 20 years in some cases, where the virus is just there and it's not doing any kind of damage. So this logic will work for hepatitis also. Those infected with hepatitis B and C virus might not show the symptoms for many years. Okay. So the answer here is B. Okay. Now, the next thing which we have to go into is the different systems of the body. We're going to go through and understand the basic ideas behind the working of different parts of the body. We don't really need the diagrams or very detailed description of different parts or terms, because UPSC is not really asking those things. Maybe 15 years ago that trend was different, but now according to the current thing, they focus more on you understanding concepts, and this will help you understand a lot of diseases and a lot of different variations when it comes to mechanisms of working of the body. But in a lot of other exams, I mean, other than UPSC, if there's any other exam on the list, then in that this would need a lot of detailed preparation, because every part, every small thing, every organ is asked in a lot of details, because obviously the weightage of biology in those exams is very different. So you have 20, 25 questions also in your state services exams or any other exams. And predominantly the area which is questioned is this one, different organs of systems of the body. But yahan pe, you just need to understand this broadly, and that's what we are going to do. We'll be starting with the first system. You can keep writing down the points which you are finding significant. Diagram aapko nahi chahiye, but if you like this, you want to draw it, please go ahead. The important thing is that you understand कि ये function कैसे कर रहा है. The first point is going to be here, what is digestion? So digestion, if we look into this word, this means breakdown of food into simpler, smaller parts. When we are eating food, we have all the nutrients present in that food, but those nutrients are not in forms which the body can use. So what is required is that these food items, they should be broken down, they have to be simplified, and in that smallest form the body will be able to use it. So अब इसको usable form में nutrients को अपने simplified version में लाना है. For this, what your body contains is a number of digestive enzymes. There are enzymes present who are responsible to break down these food particles. So digestion happens with the help of enzymes. Okay. Now let's start and see how this whole thing is going to work. We will start with the mouth. When you eat food, the first place where your body will come in contact with the food is going to be your mouth. In the mouth, you have salivary glands. These salivary glands produce saliva. This saliva is going to be breaking down the carbohydrates. There is an enzyme called amylase, and the job of this enzyme is to break down carbohydrates. That means from your food, the first thing which is going to be broken down is the carbohydrates. Then from the mouth, the food will go to the next location, which is the stomach. To take your food from the mouth to the stomach, there is a tube here, and this is called esophagus. Or in simple terms, this is the food pipe. In this food pipe, no digestion is taking place. That means nothing is being broken down here. It is just a connecting link from the mouth to the stomach. So, in your esophagus, no digestion takes place. In your stomach now, you have gastric juice. The secretion of the stomach is called the gastric juice, and it has two things. One is HCl, hydrochloric acid, and an enzyme called protease, which the name should tell you is for breakdown of proteins. So माउथ में कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स ब्रेक डाउन हो रहे थे, स्टमक में प्रोटीन्स. Now if you look at the position of the stomach, it is slightly tilted. Okay, this position is slightly tilted. So having acid produced in this organ makes it very important that this organ is closed at the time when digestion is taking place. So यहाँ पे at both the ends of the stomach, there are going to be muscle bands which will seal the stomach, and these muscle bands are called sphincters. Their job is to make sure that both the ends of the stomach, they are sealed when digestion is taking place, so that no HCl will flow out of the stomach. Stomach को HCl produce करना है तो stomach is well trained. The walls of the stomach are trained and equipped to handle HCl. But otherwise, उसके अलावा if it goes anywhere else, it is going to be harmful. So you don't want that. So this sphincter is needed for that. Now, do you understand the idea of acidity? I'm sure everybody is aware of that. Okay. So acidity में the acid which we are talking about is this HCl. And when HCl flows to any space other than where it is required to be, like when it starts flowing back, starts coming to back to the mouth, reflow, reflux, that is acidity. That would happen in any situation where the sphincter does not close properly. Okay, like you might have heard that people always say that you should not lie down immediately after eating food. Yes? The concept of that is also this, that एक तो stomach already tilted position में है, उसके ऊपर से when you lie down, there is a possibility that the sphincters might not close properly. So if they don't close properly, then the acid will flow back into the mouth. Another case of acidity would be when somebody eats more. ये overeating वाला case है. ठीक है. अब overeating में क्या है? You're eating food, but that food is more than the capacity of the stomach. ठीक है. अब जितने stomach में जगह उससे ज्यादा खाना खा लिया तो इसी में भरता जाएगा. ठीक है. अब भरता जाएगा तो what will happen is the sphincter is not going to close properly. Right? Because of the force of the food, this sphincter will not be able to seal this properly. And if it is not sealed properly, then that acid reflux is going to take place. Okay? Okay. After this, the next part where the food is going to go to is going to be the small intestine. So, stomach से food comes to the small intestine. Here now in the small intestine, it produces intestinal juice. The liquid produced by the small intestine is intestinal juice, and this has enzymes peptidase for protein, sucrase, maltase for carbohydrates. See, even if you don't remember the names of these enzymes, it's fine. You should broadly be knowing कि mouth में carbohydrates, stomach में proteins, and small intestine से proteins and carbohydrates are going to be broken down. This you need to know. Now there are two more organs associated here. One is the liver. This is the liver. And this is the pancreas. Sorry, not this. This is the pancreas. Food is not going to go into these, but these are glands producing chemicals which will be released into the small intestine. So pancreas से एक liquid आएगा जिसको हम बोलेंगे pancreatic juice. That is going to come to the small intestine. Liver produces bile or bile juice, and this is also going to come to the small intestine. So overall, small intestine will have three liquids acting for digestion: intestinal juice, pancreatic juice, and the third one is bile. Now let's see what bile does. Bile is produced by the liver, and this bile is very essential for fat digestion. But the interesting thing to remember here is bile has no fat digesting enzymes. Fat digestion के लिए important है, but there are no fat digesting enzymes. It has other things, it has some other chemicals which are supposed to help in digestion, but not enzymes. Okay. Now, bile is stored in another location called the gallbladder. Gallbladder does not produce anything of its own. Gallbladder's only job is to store bile and then release it into the small intestine. Okay. So, you might have heard that there are a lot of people who have their gallbladder surgically removed. If there is any problem with the gallbladder, it can be removed. In that case, there is no major problem which a person faces because gallbladder is not producing anything of its own. It's just storing bile and then releasing it into the small intestine. So, without gallbladder also, the liver can directly send bile into the small intestine. It's not really a problem. The only thing is that whole system will become less efficient. Okay. So the person might face some challenges in digestion of fats, but overall nothing major happens without this organ also. What happens when it is said someone has fatty liver? So if in any case your body has overconsumption of fats, or because of any other reason there is an extra load on the liver where liver is not working properly, so उसकी ये जो fat digestion ability है वो कम हो जाएगी. It will not be able to do this job properly, maybe because fats are more than its capacity to process or break them down. But in that, what happens is fats keep depositing in the liver because it's not able to process it. It will keep getting deposited and further impair the functioning of the liver, and that is what will be a fatty liver. Okay. आगे चलते हैं. Pancreatic juice. Pancreatic juice now has enzymes, protease for proteins, lipase for fats, and amylase for carbohydrates. So proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, all these three things will be broken down by the action of pancreatic juice. And with this, with the action of these three juices, the breakdown of all nutrients in the body is complete in the small intestine. All the things of your food which your body wanted to use, they have been broken down into their smallest usable forms. Now what has to happen is that these nutrients have to go into the blood. because they are going to be used in different parts of the body, and blood is the transporting system of the body. So जहाँ पे जिस चीज की requirement है, blood is going to take it to that part of the body. ठीक है? This whole thing will happen in the small intestine. So if we see what's happening in the small intestine, you have nutrients which are going to be absorbed into the blood. So by this, you should also be able to connect that small intestine must have a very rich supply of blood. Okay, only then all the nutrients will easily go into the blood. And then blood carries it to all parts of the body, wherever whatever thing is needed. There are, however, going to be some things which are going to be still left. Okay, there is water, which is there. When you're eating food, you also have water. So water बच जाएगा. Nutrients के जाने के बाद, so I'm saying what all things will be left. So one is going to be water, and there are going to be some things which do not qualify as nutrients, some things which your body cannot break down, some things which your body cannot use or does not want to use. All those things will be your undigested waste. So जो usable nutrients हैं वो तो small intestine से blood में चले जाएंगी. The undigested waste or the left out material and the water, this will go to the large intestine. The last part of your digestive system, the large intestine, is going to be getting this. Okay. Now let's see what will happen in the large intestine. Large intestine is going to absorb the water. Absorbing means large intestine से water blood में चला जाएगा, because the body needs water also, that is going to be available for the body to use, and the undigested waste will be removed, will be going outside the body. So here you have large intestine. The excess water is absorbed from the large intestine, and this rectum, this is the last part of the large intestine. So this is the large intestine, and from here the undigested waste are removed through the external opening anus in the form of your stool or feces. The stool is the undigested waste, those things which your body cannot break down and use, they are going to be removed from the large intestine. This is the whole idea of digestive system. In this, you need to know which all parts are there. You need to know what is being broken down in which part. Mouth में carbohydrates, stomach, proteins, small intestine, protein and carbohydrates. Then liver for fats, pancreas for proteins, fats and carbohydrates. Nutrients absorbed in the small intestine, water absorbed from the large intestine. The rest of it is removed. Is this fine? Yes? Okay. Then we'll go on to our next system. This is all that we needed to understand about the digestive system. Next system is the respiratory system. Now, if you have to see what is respiration, It is basically the system or the process through which energy production takes place. Production of energy, when that is taking place in the body, the process is called respiration. There are two steps in respiration. First one is cellular respiration, where every cell of your body is producing its own energy. So, whatever function each and every cell is supposed to perform, it will need energy for that. Do you remember which part of the cell was producing energy? Yes, very good. Mitochondria. So, every cell produces its own energy with the help of mitochondria, and that process is called cellular respiration. The second process is the process of exchange of gases or gaseous exchange. Now, first, let's talk about cellular respiration, how that is happening. For production of energy, the nutrient which your body uses is glucose. The starting point of respiration is going to be glucose. In the presence of oxygen, this glucose breaks down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. This is not a balanced equation. This is just to understand what is going in, what is going out. This reaction is happening in every cell. Every cell is using glucose and oxygen to produce its energy. We use a term to describe this kind of reaction, and that is aerobic respiration. The significance of this term aerobic is, aerobic means that oxygen is involved in that process. Because of use of oxygen, it is called aerobic respiration. Now, sometimes what happens is your body does not have sufficient amount of oxygen, but it still needs to produce energy. For example, suppose you get up one day. Now, see, it's New Year, right? New Year's resolutions. Everybody wants to do something amazing, right? Especially fitness goals, big fitness goals also people have. So, a lot of gym memberships and running in the park, in the fog, all those things happen. So, suppose you also get up and decide that I'm going to run 5 kilometers every day from today. Now, that has not happened in a long time, or in my case, never, right? So, the body is very confused कि ये क्या हो रहा है, ठीक है? But you are determined. So, you start running, right? And now, if you are running, your muscles will need energy. But your body is not trained to provide you with the amount of oxygen which you need to do that much physical activity. So, muscle cells, they find out an alternative method to produce energy because you are so determined you will not stop, or oxygen hai nahi. So, what muscle cells will do under those special situations is they'll start producing energy even without oxygen. In this process, lactic acid is produced along with energy. The energy produced through this method is lesser than the aerobic respiration, but the job still gets done. This property of being able to produce energy without oxygen in situations when the body is facing insufficient supply of oxygen, this would happen only in the muscle cells, not in any other cells. लेकिन ये property सिर्फ muscle cells के पास. So the muscle cells which will receive oxygen, they will do aerobic respiration, and the rest of the muscle cells which are not able to get oxygen, they will perform this method in which lactic acid is produced. It is because of this lactic acid that you will get muscle cramps also after that run. I'm sure this experience everybody has had. Then when you work out after a very long time, you get a lot of cramps the first day, right? But if you continue doing that, over a period of time, you will find कि cramps कम होते जा रहे हैं. कम क्यों होते जा रहे हैं? Because now your body gets trained. Your body will increase its capacity to supply you with oxygen. Because if the body is like अब ये तो रोज ही भाग रहा है, तो कुछ करना पड़ेगा, है ना? So oxygen supply is going to increase, and there will be a lesser need of this process, for which, as a result of which, cramps will also be less. There are some organisms in nature which always have their respiration without oxygen. These organisms, or this respiration, is called anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration may, of course, the starting point will be glucose, but you have ethanol, carbon dioxide, energy, and the characteristic organisms who do this are bacteria and yeast. So bacteria and yeast will always produce their energy without any oxygen involved. So they have the capacity now of growing in areas where there is less oxygen or limited supply of oxygen or even no oxygen. क्योंकि oxygen उनको चाहिए ही नहीं अपना energy production के लिए. You would have heard about this term fermentation. So where is fermentation involved? Distillation of what? Alcohol and bread. Yes. So baking and brewing, these are the two areas where we speak about this term fermentation. What you have to remember here is fermentation is an anaerobic process. Whenever fermentation is taking place, there is no oxygen which is utilized in that. Okay. So this is going to be the case for anaerobic organisms. For muscle cells also you can use this term. That muscle cells under special conditions can also perform anaerobic respiration. Okay. The next part of this process is the gaseous exchange. Now we have two main gases here. You have oxygen, which you want inside the body. Oxygen use हो रहा है by the cells, and carbon dioxide is produced. So this carbon dioxide has to be removed and oxygen has to come in. These are the two gases we want to exchange. Oxygen into the body, carbon dioxide outside. So we are going to see how that happens. Here also, you will need the sequence of different parts of the body. That's the main point here. So we are getting these gases through our respiratory system, which has the two main organs, which are the lungs. So let's see how things are moving here. You're going to be breathing in air through your nose or the nasal cavity. Okay. So this becomes the starting point, your nose. Then you have the next part. You can see an area which is common between food and windpipe. Can you see some overlap is there? Yes. This common passage is the pharynx. So nose के बाद you have pharynx. After pharynx, you have larynx. Larynx is the voice box. It is the place where your vocal cords are there. After the larynx, now you have the main windpipe coming down your neck, which is called trachea. So, trachea or windpipe. Then the trachea has to supply air to both your lungs. You have two lungs, so to supply them, the trachea divides into two bronchi. And bronchi further have to supply to all the parts of the lungs. So they will divide further on to bronchioles. And the bronchioles end in the last part of the respiratory tract, which is balloon-like structures or air sacs called alveoli. The sequence you need to know. Okay. Now, glucose, how is glucose reaching all the parts of the body? How is it reaching the cells? Through blood, right? How will oxygen reach all parts of the body? Again through the blood. That means जो air से oxygen आ रही है, it has, if we say it has reached the alveoli now, so from alveoli, for all the cells of your body to be able to use them, it has to go to the blood. ठीक है? So we are going to see how that works. So we have alveoli. They are balloon-like structures, they are air sacs, and they have a rich supply of blood. So air is coming into the alveoli from that whole respiratory tract, and around alveoli you have blood. Okay. So the air which you are going to breathe in, which will travel through your nose, pharynx, larynx, finally to alveoli, that air is bringing in oxygen. And now this oxygen has to go into the blood. In your blood, you have one very wonderful molecule which will act as a magnet for oxygen, and that is hemoglobin. Where is hemoglobin present? In which part of the blood? RBCs. Hemoglobin is present in your red blood cells, and this hemoglobin has a very high affinity for oxygen. So it has a very strong pull, a very strong attraction for oxygen, and from the air here, it will pull out the oxygen and it will get attached to that oxygen. Then in that attached form, oxygen is transported to all parts of the body. So hemoglobin will take out oxygen from the air, which is coming in alveoli. It will get attached to that oxygen, and then as blood flows through all parts of the body, this attached oxygen is going to go into the different cells for aerobic respiration to take place. ठीक है, जैसे जैसे aerobic respiration हो रहा है, every cell will produce carbon dioxide. Now this carbon dioxide from the cell will again come into the blood. So जब blood oxygen ले रहा है from the air, at the same time it is bringing in carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is dissolved in blood and this is going to go into the alveoli. So air से blood में oxygen, blood से air में वापस carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide then can take the path, the same path back. So from alveoli, carbon dioxide can go into the bronchioles, then bronchi, then trachea, larynx, pharynx, and finally it is going to come out from the nose. So when you are taking air in, you are doing that to get oxygen, and when you are exhaling air, okay, that is going to bring in carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide has to go out, oxygen has to come in. This whole process, this is the gaseous exchange. The site for gaseous exchange is going to be alveoli. Alveoli is the location where exchange of gases in the body would be taking place. To help in the movement of air or to provide the force for exhalation and inhalation, you have this big muscle called diaphragm. So this is the big muscle below the lungs. So this can move down, this can move up, and as it moves up and down, it will help to push the air, push the gases out or to pull them in. That is the role of diaphragm. Okay, so two parts of your respiration. One is the exchange of gases, that is carbon dioxide and oxygen. And the second is actual production of energy, which is taking place in each and every cell. Aerobic respiration because oxygen is involved. Is this okay? Yes? Okay. So we'll go to the next system then. The next is your excretory system. See, after the blood has carried all the nutrients to different locations to be used, there are a number of reactions which will be taking place in the body. And in those reactions, some waste products will also be produced. Okay. These wastes or the extra products or the byproducts which are there, they also need to be removed from the body. Now, excretory system will do that job. The purpose of your excretory system is removal of wastes and regulation of water. The body is supposed to have a fixed amount of water at all times. Okay. This water or how much water will be there in the body, this is also going to be maintained by the excretory system. Now, just like the nutrients and the gases, everything was in the blood, ये जो वेस्ट है और टोटल वाटर है, दिस इज ऑल्सो प्रेजेंट इन द ब्लड ओनली. ठीक है. We have the main organs of the excretory system, which are the kidneys. Okay, so you can see these two purple kidneys. I mean, they're not purple, but in the diagram they are purple, right? So these two kidneys, they are the main organs of the excretory system, and their job is to remove waste and regulate the amount of water in the body. The process which they follow is filtration. Blood is carrying the waste and extra water and everything, and this blood is coming into the kidneys. So kidneys are receiving blood, and you can say because it has waste, we can call it impure blood. Kidneys are going to be filtering this blood. Think of this like a normal water filter, right? You understand how water filters work? So water filter में क्या होगा? Water will come, water which is not clean, water we can say which is impure. The filter will keep the impurities with itself, right? And it will give out the clean water. Same thing kidney is going to do. Kidney में आ रहा है impure blood with all the waste with the water. The kidneys will keep the wastes with itself, and the kidneys will check for water. ठीक है. The kidneys will see कि body में इतना water होना चाहिए. If body has extra water, if the blood at that point of time is carrying extra water, the kidneys will keep the extra water with itself. And if your body does not have any extra water or has less water, then the kidneys will send all the water back. So basically they will check कि कितना पानी है. They know that the body needs a fixed amount of water at all times. So they are going to regulate that amount. And if it is extra, they are going to keep it with themselves. So this waste and the extra water which is kept by the kidneys, this forms your urine. And after this has been removed, the kidneys will send the blood back, and this time this is going to be pure blood. Blood without wastes and with the perfect amount of water which the body is supposed to contain. After this urine is formed in the kidney, it is collected through two tubes called ureters. And these two tubes are connected to a storing organ, which is the urinary bladder. This will store urine as it is being produced. It keeps getting stored in the bladder, and once the bladder is full, it will release urine from the body. If we look at what kind of wastes are present, we find that for all the animals, these wastes are nitrogenous in nature. For human beings, if we look at the composition, we find the main waste in human urine is urea. Most animals, birds में सब में nitrogenous products ही होते हैं. Like urea is nitrogenous. But कौन सा nitrogenous product होगा, that will be different. Human beings में you have urea, Birds may you have uric acid which predominates, so that variation can be there. But the wastes are nitrogenous in nature. Then you have other wastes. So we look at its percentage, this will be 2.5, 2.5, and the rest of it is going to be water. This is the ideal composition of urine. If we talk about what is present in the kidneys, so we have a number of small components, basic structure or basic unit, which is called a nephron. So kidney में filtration करने के लिए there are many smaller structures. It's basically a system of tubes which is present, and they are called nephrons. Okay. See, if we have to check if the kidney is working properly or not, what we can do is we can evaluate both blood and urine for that. जैसे कि suppose आपने blood sample लिया एक, ठीक है, and उस blood sample में you found that uric acid is more, or say urea is more, any of these wastes, it is more than the normal proportion. If suppose urea is more, it is going to give you an idea that the kidney is not functioning properly because the kidney was not able to remove this urea. तभी यूरिया ब्लड में रह गया, ब्लड में नहीं होना चाहिए उसको beyond a certain amount. Okay, so that will indicate the improper functioning of the kidneys. Okay, or say if you check for a urine sample and you find some nutrients in that, nutrients which were normally not supposed to be there, so that can again indicate that kidney is not filtering properly. Why? Because जो चीजें नहीं भी निकालनी थी वो भी निकल रही हैं बाहर. ठीक है, so इस तरह से we can evaluate the role of kidneys. ठीक है. It will also depend on what kind of things are going into the body, what kind of diet is there, what kind of diseases are there. Like suppose somebody has diabetes. Okay, so in diabetes the body is not able to process glucose properly. ठीक है, so in that case the kidney will be removing more glucose क्योंकि glucose body में use नहीं हो पा रहा, store भी नहीं हो पा रहा. So that can again indicate that there is something wrong with the body, and a correlation of that with diabetes can be made like that. ठीक है, so kidneys main function, removal of waste, regulation of water, and you can very easily evaluate the color of urine and understand how water regulation is working. If somebody is drinking more water, the urine will be more diluted, lighter in color, because ज़्यादा पानी पीने से the body will need to remove more water. If a person is drinking less water, so less water is going to be removed from the body. The urine will be concentrated क्योंकि waste तो जितना निकालना है निकालना ही निकालना है. Water का regulation can be variable. ठीक है, ओके. The next system is the circulatory system. So we've been talking about blood, how blood is carrying glucose and oxygen and even the waste. So we're going to now see how the blood movement is taking place in the body. If we talk about this system of transportation, circulatory system is for transportation and movement of different things in the body. And here, what is going to happen is that you have the heart, which is the main pumping organ. You have the blood, which is the main medium of transportation. This is going to be carried by blood vessels, and the pumping action of the heart is going to provide the force for blood to move through different parts of the body. Let's first start talking about the heart. So I'll draw the diagram which you understand. Okay. So this is the heart. Okay. The heart is supposed to have 4 chambers. There are 4 compartments in this heart. So we're going to divide it into 4 sections. These are called chambers. The 2 chambers on the top, these are the top chambers. They are auricles, or they are called atrium. And these 2 bottom chambers, they are called ventricles. Okay. When we draw any diagram of the human body, you have to think of a person standing like this. So if this is the diagram and this is my heart, this is going to be the right side, this will be the left side. Okay, so that's how we are going to label this. This is right and this is left. So based on this, the names of the chambers will be right auricle, right ventricle, left auricle, left ventricle. Your heart is of the size of your fist. Okay, this is how big the heart is. And if we look at this particular image, in this they have actually shown the cut section of the heart. Okay, they've cut the heart from between. Okay, and they have shown you the compartments, the 4 compartments. So ये है right atrium, फिर उसके नीचे you have right ventricle, then you have left ventricle. You can't see it completely because of the organs, but this is the left atrium. 4 chambers of the heart. Let's talk about blood vessels now. We have 2 main types of blood vessels. One is called artery. This is the one which takes blood. Please keep writing all this away from the heart. And the second blood vessel is the vein, which will do the opposite. It brings blood towards the heart. Now, veins we can see, right? You've seen your veins, hands, feet. What is the color of the veins? Bluish green, we can say. Why we can see these veins is because they are superficial in position. Superficial means they are closer to the surface of the skin. And the color we observe is bluish green. Arteries, on the other hand, they are deep seated within the body. We cannot see them, and they are going to be reddish in color. So if ever you get to see your artery, you should know something very wrong has happened. Okay, because normally that is not supposed to happen. One more point we can add. Arteries are thick walled and veins are thin walled. Now we are going to see how the actual circulation is going to happen, and then we'll talk about blood. See, here, look at the diagram of the heart. You can see you have two chambers on the top, two at the bottom. So whenever something is coming into the heart, okay, so this is the heart. When something will come to the heart, वो ऊपर वाले चैम्बर में आएगा, ठीक है. So entry point ये है, the auricles, and when something has to go out, it will go out through the ventricles. ठीक है, ऊपर से आएगा फिर नीचे से निकल जाएगा. That's how the blood is going to move. And in this sense, you will also be able to link it to the blood vessels. Artery का काम है to take blood away from the heart. So will it be connected to the auricle or the ventricle? Ventricle. Ventricle से ही away जा रहा है. So यहाँ पे होगी artery and auricle is going to be connected to the vein because it is bringing blood towards the heart. And it is actually easier to remember this also, AV and AV in both the cases. Okay. Okay. Now let's see the whole cycle. We're going to take help from a flow chart to understand the whole circulation. We can do it from this diagram also, but that will be a little bit more simpler. We have understood, we have studied just now that the lungs are providing oxygen which is going into the blood. So we are going to start our circulation with the lungs. Lungs bring in oxygen. So once lungs add oxygen, the blood is going to be called oxygenated blood. Or when oxygen is added to the blood, it is going to be called oxygenated blood. This oxygenated blood goes to the left side of the heart. Left side पे पहले auricle आएगा, फिर ventricle. So first it will go to the left auricle, then it will go to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle now, oxygenated blood is going to go out and go to all parts of the body. Why do all parts of the body need oxygenated blood? Respiration के लिए, right? We're talking about oxygen here mainly. So oxygen would be needed for your aerobic respiration process. So यहाँ पे respiration हो गया, energy बन गया, all the body parts have used their energy. So oxygen has been utilized and blood is now deoxygenated. Deoxygenated blood now will go to the right auricle. देखो लेफ्ट साइड पे ऑक्सीजनेटेड चल रहा है, राइट पे अब डीऑक्सीजनेटेड आ गया. सो अगेन फर्स्ट ऑरिकल देन वेंट्रिकल. From right ventricle now, deoxygenated blood will go out back to the lungs so that the lungs will be able to further provide oxygen and the cycle will continue. Let's do this whole cycle one more time. This time we will also be adding the blood vessels. So lungs से oxygenated blood going to the left auricle. Blood is going towards the heart. Will it be carried by an artery or a vein? Vein, right? Auricle के साथ vein ही आएगा. And this is coming from the lungs. So this will be pulmonary vein. So pulmonary vein is bringing oxygenated blood to the left auricle, then left ventricle. Left ventricle से now blood going away from the heart. This is oxygenated blood. Away के लिए artery या vein? Artery. The name of this artery is aorta. All the parts of the body have utilized oxygen now. The blood is deoxygenated. This deoxygenated blood is going towards the heart now, towards the right auricle. So यहाँ पे again there's going to be a vein, and this vein is vena cava. Right auricle, right ventricle. Okay. Now this right ventricle is going to let blood go out back to the lungs, deoxygenated blood, and this will be through pulmonary artery. We can talk about this whole circulation in two sections. We can, the part which has the lungs, that can be called pulmonary circulation, and the part which is for all the other systems of the body, that can be called systemic circulation. We combine this, and we also talk about the word double circulation in the heart. The reference of double circulation is in the way कि left side पे oxygenated blood is going on and right side has deoxygenated blood. See, it's not going to be exactly cyclic in this way. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि लेफ्ट पे ब्लड चल रहा है, राइट चैम्बर खाली पड़ा है कि अच्छा तुम्हारा हो जाए तो इधर भेज देना. ठीक है, ये साइमल्टेनियस प्रोसेस चलते रहेगा. So left पे you will always have oxygenated blood, and right side of the heart will always be having deoxygenated blood. So double circulation in the heart. ठीक है. Now let's talk a little bit about blood. We'll add one more point to this discussion on blood vessels. Arteries always contain oxygenated blood except for pulmonary artery. And veins always carry deoxygenated blood except for pulmonary vein. ठीक है. Let's talk about blood now. What is the color of blood? बताओ. Okay, very good. Red. Now tell me, why is the blood red? Hemoglobin. Okay. So within hemoglobin also you have iron. Okay. This iron is the main reason why blood is red. Iron gives red color to the blood. Iron is present in hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is present in the red blood cells. Now we can talk about blood in its two main components. One is plasma, which is the liquid part, And without the cells, if we just look at the liquid part of the blood or the plasma, this is going to be yellowish. And you have cells, platelets, red blood cells, white blood cells. We will first talk about plasma. This plasma contains proteins called plasma proteins. The liquid part of the blood that contains proteins called plasma proteins. And we'll write the names of these proteins now. Please write. Albumin, albumin helps to maintain albumin helps to maintain the pressure of blood. Albumin helps to maintain the pressure of blood. Then globulin. Globulin is for the defense mechanism of the body. Globulin is for defense mechanism of the body. And the third one is fibrinogen. Fibrinogen is for clotting of blood. Fibrinogen is for clotting of blood. Now let's take a look at the cells. The blood cells are of different kinds. You have these of different shapes, different sizes, different structures, and of course different functions also they are going to be performing. We'll talk about these one by one. First, we'll talk about the platelets. The platelets are also called thrombocytes. And their function is that they initiate clotting of blood. Platelets initiate clotting of blood. Now, do you know about anything else which helps in clotting of blood? Vitamin K, yes. And ये अभी पढ़ा हमने fibrinogen. ठीक है. So basically what happens is, if we have to look at, suppose this is a blood vessel and this is now injured. If this blood vessel is injured, what is going to happen is the blood flowing will flow out and there is going to be loss of blood. If this blood continues to flow, the body will lose blood, and that's not something which we want. So what happens is this broken part is sealed with the help of a meshwork pattern of a clot. So a clot ban jayega which will seal. You can say you can plug this hole with the clot. Once the clot is formed, the bleeding is going to stop. Now, this clot is formed by proteins. The nature of this clot is proteinaceous, and the protein which is the starting point of these reactions, which will ultimately lead to clot formation, is fibrinogen. For fibrinogen to undergo different reactions and ultimately form the clot, vitamin K will be needed. And for fibrinogen to become activated and start doing this thing, it needs a signal from the platelets. Platelets initiate the process. So, if platelets are not there, the whole process of clotting will not start. So, the significance of platelets lies in the fact that they help to stop bleeding, they help in clot formation. That is why whenever platelet number is less in any condition, in say diseases like dengue, you know about dengue, right? So, what causes dengue? Hmm? Aedes aegypti is a mosquito. So, mosquitoes we have studied are vectors, right? Mosquitoes will help in transferring the disease. But what is causing the disease? Pathogen क्या है? Plasmodium for malaria. Dengue के लिए क्या है? It's a virus. Okay, so there is a virus called dengue virus, same name. That virus is going to be present in the body of that Aedes mosquito. और वो mosquito जब bite करेगा तो वो virus deposit कर देगा. Then the person will have dengue. In dengue, the virus will be destroying the platelets of the body, and it will also prevent production of new platelets in the body. So what will happen is there is going to be a very severe risk of the person bleeding internally, because there is no mechanism to stop bleeding if it happens. And as the number of platelets continue to fall, because of that risk of internal bleeding, the person might die. So platelets in that sense become very, very critical for this function of clotting of blood. ठीक है. The second type of cells are the red blood cells, or as they are called, erythrocytes. What is the function of red blood cells? Supplying oxygen, right? They contain hemoglobin, and that hemoglobin gets attached to oxygen. So for oxygen supply in the body, you need your red blood cells. Okay. So for red blood cells, you can write their function. They are needed for supplying oxygen to different parts of the body. They contain hemoglobin. They contain hemoglobin. And the iron present in hemoglobin, is responsible for giving red color to the blood. Giving red color to the blood. अब ये एक बार देखो थोड़ा सा. रेड ब्लड सेल्स है So they have hemoglobin. So if you have red blood cells, automatically you will have less hemoglobin also. So when you have less hemoglobin, what is that condition called? Anemia. Okay, ये हमने पहले भी बात की थी. So if hemoglobin is ever less in any case, you have a disease or a condition called anemia. Hemoglobin का function है to carry oxygen, and oxygen is needed for energy in the body. So somebody who will have anemia, that person will have less hemoglobin. That means the person will have less oxygen carried in the body, and less oxygen would mean less energy. So one of the common things, or the first things which happens in a person with anemia, is the person will have body weakness. Okay, weakness. Why? You can correlate it very nicely now because you understand what oxygen is doing. Weakness इसलिए क्योंकि oxygen कम है because of less hemoglobin, so less energy is going to be produced. Okay, one more analogy of this, one more application I want to tell you here. I think that would be something which all of you understood for uh, when we had COVID-19 infection. Remember COVID-19 infection? और उसमें everybody was using that oximeter and checking oxygen saturation क्या है, right? That oxygen saturation was falling down when somebody had COVID, right? COVID-19 virus was attacking the alveoli. Okay. Different kinds of infections when we have in the respiratory system, the area where the target attacks takes place, that is different. So COVID-19 की favorite place थी alveoli. अब alveoli को जब आप attack करोगे, that means alveoli will not be available to perform this function of gaseous exchange. ठीक है? और अगर gaseous exchange नहीं होगा, that would mean oxygen supply will reduce. And that is what was happening in checking that oxygen saturation. Why oxygen levels were decreasing? Because gaseous exchange was not happening as alveoli was not functioning. And that would ultimately mean less energy production in the body. So one of the immediate remedies or first aid things which was supposed to be done or asked, patients were asked to do, was to lie on their front. Okay. So ulta letne se what would happen is that there is going to be a pressure which is going to be exerted, and chances are some of these alveoli might open with that pressure. Okay, so if alveoli open, then the oxygen saturation level or the oxygen levels in the body is going to would be increasing. Okay. Okay. Now let's go to the third type of cells, white blood cells, which are also called leukocytes. Now, we had studied some of the white blood cells when we studied immunity. Can you tell me what white blood cells do? Actually, I've already told you they help provide immunity, right? So that's their main function in the body. Defense mechanism, fighting infection. That is the main role of white blood cells. They provide immunity in the body. This is something you can write. Then we'll go to the types of white blood cells. White blood cells, white blood cells or leukocytes provide immunity to the body. When we look at the white blood cells, we find there are many different types of white blood cells, and there is a variation in their appearance. Some of these white blood cells have these dotted pigmented structures in their cytoplasm. Okay. And some do not. So there is a variation in the type of cytoplasm they have, and this gives us the two categories of white blood cells. The first one, please write, is called agranulocytes. Write down A granulocytes, and with that you can write they do not contain granules. They do not contain granules in their cytoplasm, or no granules in their cytoplasm. Here we have, first one is monocytes. We have studied this in immunity also. Monocytes, they provide innate immunity. We study different types of immunity. So monocytes का काम है innate immunity. Then you have lymphocytes. Lymphocytes provide adaptive immunity. There are two types of lymphocytes further. You have B cells. They provide antibody mediated immune response. B cells provide antibody mediated immune response, and you have T cells which have cell mediated immune response. We have already studied how both these mechanisms work, B cells and T cells. Then, talking about the second type of white blood cells, they are going to be the ones with granules, so they are called granulocytes. So granulocytes have granules present in their cytoplasm. Granulocytes have granules present in their cytoplasm. They are further of three types. First one is neutrophils. Neutrophils are also for innate immunity. Just like monocytes, neutrophils also similar function, innate immunity. Then basophils. Basophils are for inflammation. Basophils are for inflammation. And the third one, eosinophils. Eosinophils, they are for allergy. See, all of these are related to immunity, but their function would be different. Now, when somebody is sick, the doctor will be suggesting a blood test. And one of the most basic things which are done in those blood tests is counting of these white blood cells. So we have a test which is called TLC, which is basically total leukocyte count. Now you have a fixed number of these white blood cells in your body, but whenever there is infection, whenever there is disease, whenever there is some problem, the body will be producing more of these white blood cells. So this number of leukocytes or total leukocyte count, that is going to increase. When you have an increased number, that will indicate कि body is under some kind of immune attack. इसीलिए you have more white blood cells. There is also a possibility of doing a differential count. जैसे we know what should be the number of each of these individually. So all of these individually can be counted, and that will be called DLC, differential leukocyte count. So differential leukocyte count से you will know कि अच्छा अगर white blood cells बढ़े हुए हैं तो कौन से type के ज़्यादा बढ़े हैं, और where we find maximum abnormality. Like for example, a simple correlation I'll tell you. जैसे basophils we have written is for inflammation. Okay, we had studied inflammation when we studied about hepatitis. Okay, so basophils are going to be increased in number when the body is undergoing inflammation. So आपने किसी का DLC किया, in that the result comes that basophils are abnormally high. So it is going to indicate that the person is having some kind of inflammation reaction. Further, with the actual symptoms of the person, that correlation can be made and a diagnosis would be reached that okay, this is the disease a person is suffering from. So this test, these kind of tests or basic blood tests or counting of white blood cells will give an indication of the immune system or the kind of immune attack which is happening. Okay. Okay. So we have one last topic left with blood, and that is blood groups. We're going to take a break and then we'll do that. Now, do you all know your blood groups? Okay. If you don't, that's something you should know. So when we talk about blood groups, we talk about two variables here. One variation is the ABO type, in which we say we have blood groups A, B, AB and O. And there is another type which is called the RH type, and in this we have two variables, positive and negative. So when you talk about your blood groups, you will be using these two terms together. So you might be saying A negative or AB positive or O positive, whatever is your blood group, right? Now we are going to understand how this is working or how we are getting these blood groups. For that, we will have to talk a little bit about the idea of antigens and antibodies, which we had studied earlier, but of course, long back now. So, antigen is something in this case of blood groups which is present on the surface of red blood cells. So there are some special structures present on the surface of red blood cells which give red blood cells different types, which gives us all these different blood groups. Okay, let me show you the image of the red blood cells. So this is for ABO blood group type. Here we are talking about two different structures. One we are calling antigen A, and the second one we are calling antigen B. Okay, these are different and they have been represented here in terms of different shapes. Okay, अगर ये A antigen present है on the surface of red blood cells, the blood group is going to be called blood group A. अगर ये दूसरा antigen with a different shape, they've shown it here, antigen B, that if that is present here, it is going to be blood group B. Sometimes both of these can be present on the surface of red blood cells. So if both A and B are present on your red blood cells, the blood group is going to be AB. And there is a possibility कि A भी ना हो और B भी ना हो. Both of these antigens would be missing from the surface of the red blood cells. And in that case, the blood group will be, think of this as 0. Both are absent, or what we are going to call O. So which antigen is present on the surface of red blood cells, that would determine the type of blood group. So we are going to make a column here. You can also make this. First column would be antigen. So अगर A antigen है blood group A, अगर B antigen है blood group B. If both A and B are present, AB, and if both are not present, it is going to be O. For this second category also, we have an antigen, but in RH type there is only one antigen. जैसे ABO type में तो दो antigen थे. In case of RH, you have only one antigen, which is the RH antigen. This term is derived from the rhesus monkey. So ये antigen सबसे पहले it was identified from a variety of from a species of monkey called the rhesus monkey. So from there it received its name RH. So this is another antigen which can similarly be present on the surface of red blood cells. Here the classification is simpler. अगर RH antigen present है, आपने बोल देना positive. If RH antigen is absent, you will say negative. So positive for RH, negative for RH. ठीक है. Now let me talk a little bit about the idea of blood transfusion, then we will go further into this. So blood transfusion is the process of giving one person's blood to another person. Now I'm sure you know that one person's blood can be given to another person. Yes, but why would we want to do that? What would be the cases जहाँ पे ये करना पड़ेगा? Okay, accident में injury में blood loss हो गया. Surgery, okay, some surgery somebody is undergoing again with which blood loss can happen. Anemia or any other form of disease in which there is a deficiency of blood, you will need to take blood of one person and give it to another person. Okay, so what we are going to have here is, we will have a person who will give blood. This person is going to be called a donor, and there is going to be a person who will receive blood. So that person is going to be called a recipient. Okay. Now I'm sure you are also aware of this idea that when blood of one person is given to another person, they do a matching before that. Yes, पहले match करते हैं, ऐसे ही किसी का भी किसी को नहीं दे सकते, right? So we are going to understand how this matching is going to be working. ठीक है? Now for that we'll have to talk a little bit about the concept of an antigen. When we had studied an antigen, we said that this is something which stimulates the immune system. That once an antigen is there, B cells become activated, they start working, and they produce antibodies. When antibodies are produced, they are produced in the plasma of blood plasma, which we have studied just now. The job of an antibody is to destroy the antigen. Okay, antigen would come into somebody's body. Antigen will stimulate the immune system. We studied about B cells specifically doing this. B cells become activated, they recognize the antigen and produce an antibody to destroy the antigen. अब ये antigen antibody interaction when it comes to blood has to come with a little bit variation. Variation ये है कि हर किसी के रेड ब्लड सेल्स पे एंटीजन है, बट नो बॉडी और नो इम्यून सिस्टम विल प्रोड्यूस एंटीबॉडीज अगेंस्ट इट्स ओन एंटीजन. इम्यून सिस्टम की एक प्रॉपर्टी है दैट इट नोज हाउ टू डिस्टिंग्विश बिटवीन self and non-self. It will never attack its own cells. It only attacks foreign cells or things which come from outside. ठीक है? So that interaction of antigen and antibody that will come into play in this case. Donor, recipient और blood transfusion. ठीक है? अब ये इसको apply करते हैं. Then we'll talk a little bit more about antibodies. The donor's blood is now the foreign material which is going into the body of the recipient. The recipient's body will start evaluating the donor's blood. And the immune system of every person responds or reacts only to antigens. Antigen वो चीज है जिससे immune system start होता है, stimulate होता है. So the recipient's body will be checking the donor's blood and will be looking for antigens because the antigen will stimulate its immune system. So donor के blood में से वो antigen check करेगा and then as a response to this antigen, the B cells, the B lymphocytes of the recipient, they will produce antibodies. ठीक है? However, while producing antibody, the recipient's immune system will make sure कि वो अपने antigen के against antibody ना बना दे, because it also has antigens present on its own blood cells. So, if we apply this logic here, and see what antibodies can be produced, what we can see is a person with blood group A having antigen A, in no situation will he ever produce antibody A. A उसके अपने blood में, वो अपने blood के against antibody नहीं बनाएगा. But if there is a need ever, there is no problem with it producing antibody B. So A blood group antibody B बना सकता है if it needs in any situation. Similarly with B. B will never produce antibody B, but B can make antibody A. There is no problem with that. Its own cells will still be safe. What about AB? Out of anti-A, anti-B, which it can produce? None. वो दोनों में से कुछ भी produce करेगा, it will be attacking its own blood cells, so none. And what about O? Both. Right? O के पास कोई antigen नहीं है, कोई खतरा नहीं है, so it can produce anti-A also and anti-B also. Same thing, let's apply to the RH type. Here because we have only one antigen, so that means antibody भी एक ही होगी. RH antigen है, antibody होगी anti-RH. So in case of positive blood group with an antigen, can the antibody be produced? No. जहाँ antigen है वहाँ antibody नहीं produce होगी, so it will be absent. What about the negative case where no antigen is there? यहाँ पे antibody can be produced, so you will have anti-RH. Now we will apply this to this blood transfusion and see how the matching actually works. So let's take an example. Suppose your donor is blood group A, recipient is blood group B. ठीक है. So ये A blood group B की body में आया. B's immune system starts checking it, and if it finds an antigen, it will become stimulated. So what antigen does A blood group have? A. ठीक है. Antigen A. And now B has recognized its immune system is stimulated. So which antibody can B produce? सी ये बोर्ड पे लिखा है, तो इसमें सबका आंसर सेम होना चाहिए. ठीक है, पढ़ के बताओ. बी ब्लड ग्रुप में कौन सा एंटीबॉडी प्रोड्यूस होगा? वेरी गुड. ओके. सो एंटी ए एंटीबॉडी and antigen A means कि this antibody will destroy the antigen. This transfusion will not be successful because all the blood that's going to come, that is going to be destroyed. And this blood clots can get deposited in the blood vessels, and the person might also die because of obstruction of blood supply if proper intervention is not given in a timely manner. So this matching is very, very crucial. अब RH type का भी एक example लेते हैं. So let's say my donor is RH negative, okay, and my recipient is RH positive blood. So both of these we will check. Now checking का rule यही same है. See, the questions which you will get in this section will mostly be application based. This is a very common theme for asking questions in not just in UPSC but in many other exams also. So you will need to remember this. This is the base. Donor antigen, recipient antibody. So RH negative में antigen है या नहीं है? नहीं. Okay, so antigen here is absent, and RH positive blood group, can it produce an antibody? No, it cannot produce an antibody. So ना antigen है ना antibody है, ना reaction होगा, transfusion successful. So you need to know this basic idea that which antigen is present in which blood type. Basically the name of the blood group will tell you that very clearly. A है तो A antigen, B है तो B antigen, AB है तो AB antigen, right? And जो antigen है उससे उल्टा antibody होता है. That same antibody will not be present. When you check for blood transfusion, you match donor antigen, recipient antibody. ठीक है? Now let's solve a question. You'll further get clarity on this topic, and if you have any confusion, then we can discuss that. So this is a UPSC previous year question on blood transfusion. See if you can solve this. Why is this not working? शुरू से ही नहीं काम कर रहा है? कर रहा था, बंद हो गया? So do you need this या are you comfortable? चाहिए? नहीं चाहिए? चाहिए. अच्छा. A and B. Okay. People online, any answers? A man whose blood group is not known meets with a serious accident and needs blood transfusion immediately. Which one of the blood groups mentioned below and readily available in the hospital will be safe for transfusion? So there is a person who is supposed to receive blood, but we don't know his blood group. Now for this person, we need to find a donor out of these blood groups. So let's go to our chart. We have a recipient, but we don't know what the recipient is. And because this recipient is unknown, we have no idea what antibodies can be produced. Antibodies बन भी सकती हैं, नहीं भी बन सकती है, एक बन सकती है, दो बन सकती है. We have no idea what antibodies might be present. So, to make sure that we have a successful blood transfusion, we have to find a donor which does not have an antigen. The best case scenario would be when there is no antigen, there will be no reaction with any antibody. Antigen होगा तो antibody बनेगा तब reaction होगा. Now, out of both of these, ABO and RH, you have to find the blood group where there is no antigen. So, out of ABO type, antigen कहाँ नहीं है? O. So, O is the blood group where there is no antigen. And out of positive and negative, where there is no antigen? Negative. ठीक है, negative में antigen नहीं. So, that means the blood group will be ORH negative, yeah, simply we can call it O negative. And by this logic, you should also be able to understand this is the universal donor. ORH negative is a blood group which will be able to donate blood to all blood types. किसी भी recipient को ये blood दे सकता है, making it the universal donor. If I ask you which blood will be universal recipient, to become universal recipient, a blood group should not be producing any antibodies. If it doesn't produce any antibody, any antigen might come, there will not be any reaction. Okay. So, ABO में which blood group does not produce an antibody? AB. Okay. No antibodies produced in AB. So, AB here. And between positive and negative, which does not produce antibody? The positive blood group does not produce antibody. So, ABRH positive becomes the universal recipient. It can receive blood from all blood types without having any mismatch. So, according to this, the answer to this question is going to be A, ORH negative. मैम प्लीज रिपीट कर दो लास्ट वाला. ऐसे कैसे मुझे पता चलेगा आपके लिए लास्ट क्या है? क्या है भाई लास्ट वाला? लास्ट वाला टॉपिक, लास्ट वाला एग्जाम्पल. सो आई नो यू ऑलरेडी हैव द फुल स्टेटमेंट इन योर माइंड, पर वो लिखना पड़ेगा तभी मुझे पता चलेगा कि क्या आप सोच रहे हो. तभी पता है टाइपिंग में टेक्स्ट पे इतनी लड़ाइयाँ होती हैं. Because half the things are in your mind and something else you have written. And then people are exiting groups in anger. कैसे कैसे लिख दिया मुझे. A lot of miscommunication. एक बॉम्बे blood group भी है. See, there are many other types of blood groups because there are many other types of antigens also. And with their variation, we get some unique blood groups which are less common, which are rare. The number of people having that blood group is lesser. So there are some blood groups where the number of people who have those blood groups, they are like some blood groups में there are like less than 50 people also in the world having that blood group. So इस तरह की बहुत सारे variations हैं because other than this antigen, there are many other antigens also. Okay, so I'll tell you about Bombay blood group. बिकॉज दैट्स समथिंग यू आस्क्ड, बट इसके अलावा भी और बहुत ब्लड ग्रुप्स है. यू रियली डोंट नीड टू गो इनटू द डिटेल्स ऑफ ऑल ऑफ दैट, but this blood group was first studied in Bombay, and it keeps coming up in different movies and different stories. So let's see what this is. So एक एंटीजन है ABO टाइप का, और जिसको बोलते हैं एंटीजन H. This antigen H is a precursor to ABO type. तो ABO टाइप के जितने ब्लड ग्रुप्स होते हैं उन सब में ये एंटीजन H होता है. ओके, दैट मीन्स A, B, AB, O. All of these have antigen H. It is present in all these four blood groups. This is the starting point before A and B antigen are formed. Okay. This antigen, however, is not present in some people. There is an exceptional group जिनमें ये H antigen नहीं होता है. So when this antigen H is absent, the person is said to have Bombay blood group. So अगर उसमें H नहीं है, because H is precursor to ABO blood group type, that means A और B antigen भी नहीं होगा. ठीक है ना. तो अगर आप इसको बनाओगे H ब्लड ग्रुप के लिए, इसमें कोई एंटीजन नहीं है, लेकिन अगर कोई एंटीजन नहीं होता है, दैट शुड टेल यू कि एंटीबॉडी सारे होंगी. एक तो एंटीबॉडी H. If there is an antigen H, there will be an antibody H, which this will have. Then it will have anti-A and also anti-B. Now tell me this thing, if I have to ask you about the donor-recipient relationship here. The person with Bombay blood group, why the name Bombay बताया तो है, बॉम्बे में डिस्कवर हुआ था इसीलिए. Whom can this person donate blood to? If this Bombay blood group person has to act as a donor, out of A, B, A, B, O, ये किस किस को ब्लड डोनेट कर सकता है? A, B को कर सकता है. अच्छा, डोनर का क्या चेक करते हैं हम? एंटीजन. कौन सा एंटीजन है इसमें? तो A, B को क्यों कर सकता है, A को क्यों नहीं कर सकता फिर? बताओ किस कौन से ब्लड ग्रुप को कर सकता है? ए बी सही है, ए बी को कर सकता है. यस, वेरी गुड. ए को क्यों नहीं कर सकता? कैसे? एंटीबॉडी के लिए एंटीजन तो होना चाहिए डोनर के पास. ये देखो, ना ना ना, ये देखो, डोनर का एंटीजन कंसिडर करना है. दिस बॉम्बे ब्लड ग्रुप हैज नो एंटीजन. ना इसके पास ए है ना बी है, और जो एच एंटीजन है ए बी और ओ के पास वो भी नहीं. दैट मीन्स इट्स द मोस्ट परफेक्ट डोनर. इट हैज नो एंटीजन, तो ये किसी की भी बॉडी में चले जाए, कोई एंटीबॉडी के साथ रिएक्शन होगा ही नहीं. So it will be able to donate blood to all these 4 blood group types including its own self. बॉम्बे को भी कर सकता है. अब रिसिपिएंट बताओ, ये रिसीव किससे कर सकता है? ओनली बॉम्बे. यस, इट विल नॉट बी एबल टू रिसीव फ्रॉम एनी ऑफ दीज क्योंकि इसके पास सारी एंटीबॉडीज है. एंटीबॉडी ए एंटीबॉडी बी तो ए बी और ए बी में चल जाएंगी. एच में एच एंटीजन इज प्रेजेंट इन ब्लड ग्रुप ओ, सो एंटी एच एंटीबॉडी ओ को भी इनकम्पैटिबल होगा. So people with Bombay blood group can only receive blood from Bombay blood group people, but they can donate to everyone. That is why in all those movies, the critical thing is this, कि Bombay blood group वाला बंदा चाहिए कोई. Like, have you seen that movie अंधाधुन? That's the only movie I can think of. Maybe you know about some other movie also. कहानी आई कांट रिमेम्बर. उसमें बॉम्बे ब्लड ग्रुप का क्या सीन था उसमें? बॉम्बे ब्लड ग्रुप था. अच्छा, फिर मतलब हाउ डज दिस कम आउट? कैसे पता चलता है कि उसका बॉम्बे ब्लड ग्रुप था? ओके, लगता है लंबी स्टोरी में चल जाएंगे. मैं अंधाधुन वाली सुना देती हूँ. सो इन अंधाधुन, Tabu has Bombay blood group, okay, and she is kidnapped because there is some very rich person whose son needs a transplant and that son has Bombay blood group. तो अब उसको कोई बॉम्बे ब्लड ग्रुप वाला बंदा किडनी देने के लिए मिल नहीं रहा होता है, तो इसलिए तब्बू का पता चलता है कि ये बॉम्बे ब्लड ग्रुप है. उसको किडनैप कर लेते हैं कि इसका ब्लड कंपैटिबल होगा, इसकी किडनी चोरी कर लेंगे. राइट? सो बाकी कहानी वाला आप खुद से रिव्यू कर लेना क्या है उसमें बॉम्बे ब्लड ग्रुप का लॉजिक. व्हेनेवर यू नीड्स टू नो इफ अ ट्रांसफ्यूजन विल वर्क और नॉट, डोनर रिसिपिएंट का ये बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट आपको याद रखना है. डोनर एंटीजन, रिसिपिएंट एंटीबॉडी. The donor's blood is the foreign material which is going into the body of the recipient. The donor's blood contains antigens. Every blood group type on the surface of their red blood cells have antigens. Once this donor's blood containing antigen goes into the recipient body, the recipient's body will evaluate it for antigen, and antigen by definition is something which stimulates the immune system. After an antigen is recognized, that's when the immune system starts working, the B cells start working, they produce antibodies. So antibody बनेंगी recipient की body में in response to the antigen. ठीक है? So इसको simplified version में यही है donor antigen, recipient antibody. Just remember this. The important thing when you talk about antigen is that's how the blood group is named. जो एंटीजन प्रेजेंट है दैट्स द नेम ऑफ द ब्लड ग्रुप, एंड नो ब्लड ग्रुप or no person's body will produce antibody against its own blood. That's the only exception here which you have to consider. But जो उसके पास खुद के पास एंटीजन नहीं है उसका एंटीबॉडी कन्वीनियंटली बन सकती है. ठीक है? Okay. Now we'll go to the next system. Circulatory system is over. And this is going to be the last of our body systems which we have to study. The system of glands. Now, before we go into the exact thing, which is the system of hormones, this is just a basic understanding which we need to have about how glands work. So, our body has two types of glands. One is called exocrine gland and the second is endocrine gland. Our topic for the day is on this endocrine glands or the endocrine system. But to understand how they work, we'll first see what is an exocrine gland. This is any organ. Gland means anything which is secreting something, which is producing some chemical. So this gland is producing some chemicals here, and there is a duct or a tube which will take this chemical produced by the gland to the next location. जैसे अभी हमने पढ़ा है liver. Okay. So liver, what was it producing? Bile, right? So this bile through a system of tubes will then be reaching the small intestine. So when tubes carry chemicals, the gland is an exocrine gland. The other category of glands is the endocrine glands, in which there are no tubes or ducts. These are ductless glands. Okay. They are not having ducts, so whatever they produce, whatever chemicals they produce, those chemicals go directly into the blood. They are surrounded by a very rich blood supply, so these chemicals can go into the blood, and then blood can take it to any part of the body which needs to be targeted by that chemical. These special chemicals which are going to be moving through the blood produced by ductless glands, they are called hormones. The function of this system is basically internal coordination of different functions in the body. It provides a variety of functions as it is targeting different parts of the body, and basically this is a way in which body uses chemicals for coordination of different functions. Okay, so we are going to talk about this system in detail. Just write one line. Your heading will be endocrine system. Endocrine system. It is meant for internal communication and regulation of the human body. Hormones are secretions of these endocrine glands. Hormones are secretions of these endocrine glands which do not have ducts, and secrete directly into the blood, to be transported to distantly located target organs. Now let's see what all things come in this endocrine system. So there are a number of glands which are doing this function of producing hormones and releasing them in the body. This system is important for us So we are going to look into all these different organs and see what hormones they are going to be producing. We are going to be starting with the brain. So first you have two endocrine glands in the brain, hypothalamus and pituitary. Then coming down to your neck, you have the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland. Then when you come further, you have these two kidneys, and on top of kidneys, you have two glands called adrenal glands. Then you have pancreas. Now, pancreas today we have studied with the digestive system also, right? So, that pancreatic juice, that is the exocrine function. Okay, उसके लिए एक tube थी which was coming into the small intestine. Here, pancreas also has a part which will produce hormones and release it into the blood. So this is one gland of the body which is both. It is a mixed gland. ये exocrine भी है, endocrine भी. After this, you have your reproductive organs, your ovaries in females and testes in males, which are also going to be producing hormones. They produce sex hormones, and by that function, they also act as endocrine glands. Okay, so we're going to talk about all this. We'll start with the hypothalamus. So, hypothalamus is linked to the functioning of the pituitary gland, and hypothalamus is basically like a switch for the working of the pituitary gland. It has two hormones, releasing and inhibiting. तो जब hypothalamus releasing hormone release करेगा, pituitary will start working. It's like a signal to the pituitary, start releasing your hormones. And inhibiting will be the opposite thing. Inhibiting will be to stop the function. Okay, if inhibiting hormone has come from the hypothalamus, pituitary will stop working. It will inhibit its secretions. So please write hypothalamus. This will be the first gland we'll talk about. Hypothalamus. And the first organ here, first hormone here, sorry, is releasing hormone. Releasing hormone. For this you can write, it stimulates the pituitary gland. It stimulates the pituitary gland to release its secretions. It stimulates the pituitary gland to release its secretions. Then inhibiting hormone. Inhibiting hormone. It inhibits the pituitary gland from releasing its secretions. Now, pituitary has two parts. Pituitary is a very important endocrine gland. UPSC has asked many questions on pituitary. Pituitary के दो parts हैं, anterior and posterior, basically like front and back of the gland. Both of these produce their own hormones. So we are going to talk about these parts one by one. First, we'll talk about the anterior pituitary. So you please give this heading, anterior pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland. The first hormone will be Thyroid stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH. And the name should tell you what it does. It just like hypothalamus was activating pituitary, TSH will be activating the next endocrine gland, which is thyroid. Okay. So write down it stimulates the thyroid gland. It stimulates the thyroid gland to release its secretions. It stimulates the thyroid gland to release its secretions. Then next one is prolactin. Prolactin is for formation of milk. Prolactin is for formation of milk. Now, if you think about it, formation of milk is not a function which is needed in everyone. Okay. But prolactin would be present in everyone. Men, women of all ages, everyone will have prolactin. And this is true for all hormones. There is no limitation to hormone being limited to one particular biological sex or age group or anything like that. The only thing is there is a variation in the amount. Prolactin सब में है, but people who are actually going to be producing milk, that is lactating and pregnant females, in their body, the amount of prolactin will be the highest. So variation in amount is there, but not in the hormones. सब में prolactin is going to be there. Then the next one is adrenocorticotrophic hormone. Yes, you have to learn the name. ACTH. Adrenocorticotrophic hormone. Just like TSH was for thyroid, this is for adrenal gland. So you can write it stimulates the release of hormones. It stimulates the release of hormones from the adrenal glands. From the adrenal glands. Then next is follicle stimulating hormone or FSH. Follicle stimulating hormone or FSH. This is for development of eggs and formation of sperms. Development of eggs and formation of sperms. Then next one is growth hormone. Growth hormone, just like the name is suggesting, this is for growth and development of the body. Growth and development of the body. So the most obvious manifestation of growth is in the form of height. So see, this endocrine system, this is a very sensitive system. So when I say sensitive, that means the levels of hormones have to be perfectly maintained at all times. There is a very narrow range in which fluctuation can happen. And these fluctuation leads to some very severe consequences. Like if I talk about growth hormone, If the amount of this growth hormone is not adequate, say if it is less, the person would be a dwarf. You know, बौने लोग जो होते हैं, right? That is an abnormality of growth hormone called as dwarfism. Or in an opposite case, people who are abnormally tall, giants. Okay. So gigantism would be the opposite condition because of excess production of growth hormone. So somebody who's 7 feet or taller than that, that is would be an abnormality of the growth hormone. You've seen khali? Yes. So khali is the classical example of excess production of growth hormone in a person. Okay, so you become a giant like that. All right, next one, luteinizing hormone or LH. Luteinizing hormone or LH. It stimulates the gonads or sex organs. It stimulates the gonads or sex organs to produce the sex hormones. To produce the sex hormones. Now let's talk a little bit about this. See, FSH is also linked to the reproductive function, and this also in a way is linked, but their roles are very different. So for this, we will have to look into the functioning of our reproductive system. So we have sex organs. They are also called gonads. And based on this, we have two sexes. One is the male and one is the female. The male sex organ is the testis. The female has ovary. And these organs, they are going to be producing the reproductive cells. We call these reproductive cells as gametes. In males, the gamete is the sperm, and in female, the gamete is the egg. For a new organism to be formed, an egg has to fuse with a sperm, and their fusion will create a zygote that will create an embryo, और embryo से बनेगा फिर full grown baby. So these cells are the starting point of the reproductive process. Along with these cells, the sperms and the eggs or the gametes, your sex organs also produce some hormones to maintain this whole reproductive function, to maintain other secondary sexual characters, like, there is a variation in the kind of hair or the amount of hair, the voice, everything. All these features which are a distinction between male and female, for that you have sex hormones produced by testes and ovaries. The sex hormones in males, testosterone, and for females you have estrogen and progesterone. ठीक है. Now we are going to relate this to the role of the pituitary gland and the pituitary hormones. अब pituitary के दो hormones इस system से linked हैं. One is LH, one is FSH. So just read what you have written for FSH. FSH is for sperms and eggs. ठीक है. So इस step के लिए आपको चाहिए FSH. So FSH will help in formation of gametes. That eggs and sperms should be formed properly. And for releasing of sex hormones, you have LH. Just like thyroid से TSH, thyroid hormones निकाल रहा था, LH is going to do this for the sex hormones which are going to be produced by your gonads. You might be aware that some people get their fertility levels evaluated, especially when somebody is trying to have a baby, so they'll get it checked. Okay, if my fertility is okay. Now, for checking that fertility level, all these components have to be checked. You have to see how the organs are working, testes, ovary, are they okay? Then, are the sperms fine? The number of sperms, the way the sperms are moving, are the eggs, their size, their maturation, their timing, is all of that fine? And of course, the amount of hormones which are produced, is that okay? Because ये सब चीजें चाहिए reproduction को अच्छे से work करने के लिए. This is happening in the sex organs or the gonads. But along with this, these two hormones, FSH and LH, which are being released from the brain, from the pituitary gland, their levels are also very, very important. They'll come apart, they will become a part of your fertility studies. Why? क्योंकि अगर FSH का level normal नहीं है, you will not have eggs and sperms formed properly. If LH levels are not normal, then these sex hormones, their amount in the body will also be normal, and that whole reproductive process is going to be at stake. Okay, so all of this is needed to come in perfectly in sync. Only then the ideal fertility level is going to be there. Okay, is this clear? Okay. So now we move on to posterior pituitary gland. The good thing is only two hormones are. Write down posterior pituitary gland. First hormone is antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone, ADH or vasopressin. Antidiuretic hormone. Now this is supposed to work on the kidneys. We've studied the function of kidney, where we said the kidneys receive all the blood and then they check how much water the blood has. So जितना body को चाहिए उतना water वापस चले जाता है. This sending water back into the blood, that is the function of antidiuretic hormone. So you can write, it helps in reabsorption of water from the kidneys. Reabsorption of water from the kidneys, that means kidneys to back into the body. Now if you have to apply this, and if I ask you, suppose there is a situation where you have less ADH in the body, what will happen to the body in that case? Dehydration. Okay. The job of ADH is to make sure that water from the kidneys is going back into the blood. That means into the body. अगर ये कम होगा तो कम पानी जाएगा. The body will experience a shortage of water, which we understand as dehydration. So this person is dehydration, he is going to be thirsty. His body will want more water. Where is this water going to go? अगर ब्लड में नहीं जा रहा है तो कहाँ जाएगा पानी? यूरिन, राइट? So kidney is whatever kidney is keeping with itself, that is the urine. So the person is going to have an increased urine output, more urination, more urine, frequent urination. So increased thirst, increased consumption of water, but the body still is dehydrated. At the same time, more loss of water through the urine. This disease actually has a name which might be confusing with another disease. So I'm writing it here. It is called diabetes insipidus. This is not the diabetes which you know, the sugar wala diabetes. Iska usse koi lena dena nahi hai. This is a different disease. We'll talk about that also, but just remember this. Diabetes insipidus is when vasopressin is less or ADH is less. In this disease, the person will be experiencing dehydration and increased urination. Second hormone here is oxytocin. Oxytocin के बहुत functions हैं. One of the most significant ones is it is released during childbirth. Oxytocin is released during childbirth. So during that actual process of labor, when the child is moving out, that's when oxytocin is released. So this hormone can actually be given also in case the natural labor has not started and you want to start the process of labor or you want to start the process of childbirth. So if we give oxytocin from outside, that process is going to be initiated. In fact, this is for all the hormones. We need perfect levels of these hormones in our body at all times. So if there is any disease or any problem in which their levels are not ideal, we can give these hormones from outside. Okay, just to make sure that that balance is there. Coming to the next glands, the glands in your neck. Thyroid gland first. The name of the hormone is also the same, thyroid hormone or thyroxine. Do you remember which nutrient was involved with the thyroid hormone? Iodine, yes, very good. So, the structure of thyroid hormone contains iodine. For thyroid gland to start working, you first will need TSH. पहले TSH आएगा, वो activate करेगा thyroid gland को, then it will start releasing its hormone. For thyroxine, please write, it helps in the metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So basically, how your body is going to be utilizing the different nutrients, that is the job of thyroid hormone. Okay. Here, I'm sure you are aware that these days a lot of people have thyroid related diseases. ठीक है? So उसमें क्या हो सकता है? एक condition हो सकती है, when they check your thyroid functioning, they'll check TSH level also. Because अगर TSH का level सही नहीं है, that means thyroid will not be able to function properly. We can have two kinds of conditions here, two kinds of variations. One is a hypo condition, the other is a hyper condition. Hypo means less. अगर thyroid कम काम कर रहा है या thyroid hormone कम है, we are going to call that hypothyroidism. This will mean metabolism is slow. When the person is getting food, when the person is getting nutrients, his body is not able to process it properly. So a person who will have hypothyroidism, he's going to be gaining a lot of weight क्योंकि properly nutrients use नहीं हो रहे हैं body में. This person will be feeling very cold, again because of less energy being used up, being created. This person will be lazy. Okay, will feel lethargy, right? So this is the related to the role of less production of thyroid hormone. और hyper में उल्टा हो जाएगा. The person with hyperthyroidism, this person is going to be metabolizing or using and processing everything, every part of the food. So this person will be losing weight, he's going to be sweating a lot, heart rate will be high, all these symptoms opposite to hypothyroidism. So when people have thyroid issues, it's going to be one of the two conditions. Thyroid can work more or less, hypo or hyper. After this, you have parathyroid gland with the parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone helps in the metabolism of calcium and phosphate, helps in the metabolism of calcium and phosphate in the body. So if parathyroid is more, calcium is more, phosphate is inversely related, phosphate will be less. If parathyroid is less, calcium is less, phosphate will be more. So parathyroid has a direct relationship with calcium and an inverse relationship with phosphate. After this, we have the adrenal gland. And adrenal gland also has two parts. So there is one part which is the central part. That central part is called adrenal medulla, and then there is an outer part called cortex. Both of these parts produce two hormones each. Have you heard about adrenaline? Okay, what does adrenaline do, or where is adrenal used? Okay, okay. Fight, flight, fright. All right. So adrenaline is basically the emergency hormone of the body, and whenever somebody is scared or there is anxiety or overexcitement, in that process adrenaline is released. Actually, it's not just adrenaline, but we have two hormones here. From adrenal medulla, you have two hormones, adrenaline and noradrenaline, and they are both the emergency hormones. So we don't discuss their action separately, but they are a team. We use the word synergy here for their role. They will work together. So please write adrenaline and noradrenaline together. Adrenaline and noradrenaline. They are the emergency hormones. They are the emergency hormones of the body, which are produced in situations of fear, being frightened, anxious, or excited. That's why this term adrenaline rush is associated with a lot of adventure sports. Like, you decide to jump off a helicopter or something like that, skydiving. So there's a little bit of excitement, there is some thrill, there is anxiety, you're scared. So all of that combination is going to release adrenaline. Next one is adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex. So remember we spoke about ACTH from anterior pituitary. ACTH stimulates only adrenal cortex and not the medulla. So जहाँ आपने ACTH लिखा आप ऐड भी कर सकते हो specifically that it is for stimulating the cortex. क्योंकि medulla emergency system है, this is going to be an automatic system, right? But cortex is stimulated by ACTH. First ACTH will be released, then the cortex will release its hormones. First hormone here is mineralocorticoid. Mineralocorticoid. This regulates the balance of water and minerals. The balance of water and minerals in the body. So basically water and minerals are in the blood. So you can also think of this as managing how much water and minerals and electrolytes will be there in the blood. So in a sense, it will be regulating the blood pressure. So you can write this also. It helps to maintain the blood pressure. So out of the many reasons which you can have for fluctuation of blood pressure, one could be improper levels of mineralocorticoid from adrenal cortex. Second is glucocorticoid, and this is for carbohydrate metabolism. Helps in carbohydrate metabolism. Now the last gland is pancreas. Now pancreas is producing both types of secretions. So it has an exocrine part which is producing pancreatic digestive enzymes. That is delivered through a system of tubes, so that is exocrine. And endocrine part is when it is producing hormones, the hormones which we are going to just study about. This makes pancreas a mixed gland. Because it has both exocrine and endocrine parts, it is the mixed gland of the body. We have two hormones here, insulin and glucagon. Here we are going to talk about that sugar processing in the body. We have studied about glucose today, and we found that this glucose goes around in the blood, is supplied to all the cells of the body, and all the cells use this glucose to produce energy. ठीक है, ये हमने पढ़ा आज, right? Now, sometimes what can happen is your body can get more glucose. Like if you're eating more food from which you are getting more glucose, more than what your body needs, or more than the amount of energy which you are using. So glucose will be extra in that case. Now your body is very smart. It will not waste this glucose, but it is going to save this or store this for future in a form called glycogen. We had studied this when we studied nutrients also. So glycogen will be the stored form of glucose. So your body is saving this just in case in future you decide to sit on a hunger strike outside UPSC's office. So you should have some reserves of food because you'll not be getting any fresh glucose. So at that point of time, this glycogen which is stored, this can be converted back into the glucose, which will be going into the blood, and then this can go to all cells of the body and they can produce energy by aerobic respiration. This is a normal mechanism of the body. The pancreatic hormones are supposed to be helping in this process. You have insulin helping in removing glucose from the blood and converting it into glycogen, which is the stored form. And the other hormone, glucagon, will do the opposite. Glucagon will help in this stored glycogen being converted back into glucose in the blood. So जब इंसुलिन काम करेगा ब्लड में से ग्लूकोज कम हो जाएगा, and when glucagon will work, blood glucose will increase. So this is what you can write also. Please write for insulin. Insulin decreases blood glucose levels. Insulin decreases blood glucose levels, and glucagon increases blood glucose levels. Now we'll talk about the diabetes which you know about. टाइम हो जाए तो डायबिटीज तो फिर भी पढ़ना पड़ेगा. कब से आप इतनी एक्साइटमेंट से डायबिटीज की वेट कर रहे हो? आई कांट डिप्राइव यू ऑफ दैट जॉय, नो. So the diabetes which you commonly know about is diabetes mellitus. Okay, the sugar wala diabetes. In this, what happens is there is a reduced level of insulin. Okay, there's a deficiency of insulin. So if insulin will be less, what will happen to the glucose level? Increase. Okay, so with less insulin in diabetes mellitus, you will have increased blood glucose levels, and this glucose is commonly equated as sugar. In common language, people use this as a reference. And I'm sure you understand this, कि diabetes में this is what is happening. People who are diabetes, they're supposed to consume less sugar. They are already having more sugar in their blood. Now, why this is diabetes and that diabetes insipidus? What is the common point is? The common point is increased urination in both these diseases. That is why the similar term diabetes, it's used to represent that. So, vasopressin ke case mein we have already discussed why we had increased urination. Now, let's see why we are going to have this urination increased in this case. यहाँ पे ब्लड में मोर देन नॉर्मल लेवल्स ऑफ ग्लूकोज आर देयर. ठीक है, अब ये ब्लड जाएगा किडनी में. किडनी विल चेक, किडनी को पता है हर चीज का कितना लेवल होना चाहिए, एंड किडनी विल इवैल्यूएट ब्लड एंड फाइंड दैट नाउ ब्लड में ग्लूकोज इज मोर. सो व्हाट किडनी विल ट्राई टू डू इज किडनी विल ट्राई टू फिल्टर दिस आउट थ्रू इट्स यूरिन फॉर्मेशन. वो जितना ग्लूकोज निकाल सकता है उतना ग्लूकोज निकाल लेगा. For removing anything, for removing any kind of waste or extra material, just that waste will not come in solid form. उसको dissolve करने के लिए water भी चाहिए. So increased glucose remove करने के लिए you need increased water which will dissolve this so that it can be removed. And because of that, people who have diabetes, they have increased urine output, increased urination. This is the common point. Of course, the way the diseases are acting, the hormones which are involved, they are different. That is why people who have diabetes, they start facing challenges of how different organs start becoming impaired in the long run. And one of the first organs is going to be kidneys, क्योंकि kidneys को ये glucose निकालने के लिए extra मेहनत करनी पड़ रही. So kidneys will be impacted in people who have diabetes. ठीक है? Okay. So we are ending here. The endocrine system is over. We have a class tomorrow. Okay, so we will be starting with genetics. That's the last topic which we have to study in this module. There are some NCERT chapters which you can go through. This class 7 chapters you will very easily be able to understand. ये class 11th में there are 2 chapters on the circulatory system and on the endocrine system. So you don't have to read these completely, but you can just take an overview. एक class 8th में भी chapter है adolescence पे, which also talks a little bit about hormones. In your next class, we'll come to the last topic, which is genetics and biotech. Okay, thank you.